I was on a flight last week, middle seat, of course, and I found myself doing something a little odd. Instead of watching a movie, I started counting.
Counting what? Not sheep, I hope.
No, lithium batteries. I looked around my row and then the row ahead of me, and just in like a 6-foot radius, I saw 3 smartphones, 2 tablets, a laptop, a Kindle,
Smartwatch.
2 smartwatches, and a pair of noise-canceling headphones.
And that's just what you could see, right? I mean, that doesn't count the power banks that are tucked into seat pockets or the spare batteries in the carry-on.
Exactly. And I did some quick math, and I realized on a standard narrow-body jet, we are talking about hundreds, maybe even thousands of these high-energy devices.
Yeah.
It hit me that we're not passengers anymore. We're basically escorts for hazardous materials.
That is a very, very real shift in aviation safety. I mean, 20 years ago, all the dangerous goods were locked away in the cargo hold, handled by professionals.
Right, with hazmat training.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now the dangerous goods are in seat 12A, 12B, and 12C, and they're being handled by, tired passengers who might have dropped them or crushed them or bought some cheap knockoff charger online.
That's a truly terrifying thought, and that is exactly why we're here today. We are doing a deep dive into a scenario that, well, I think it keeps flight crews awake at night. Lithium battery fires in the cabin.
And let's be really clear, we're not talking about generic fire safety today. We are getting into the specific physics of lithium battery failures and the urgent, precise protocols for what to do at 30,000 feet.
For this, we've dug into some pretty serious documentation. We're pulling from the IATA Cabin Operations Safety Best Practices Guide and also the Airbus Technical Guide, Getting to Grips with Cabin Safety.
These are the industry Bibles. And the mission today is to decode that workflow because, as we're about to find out, when a lithium battery goes into what's called thermal runaway, the standard rules of firefighting don't just fail, they can actually make things a lot worse.
Okay, so let's start with that term you just used, thermal runaway. It sounds dramatic, but what is actually happening inside that phone or laptop?
Well, to really understand the danger, you have to look at the anatomy of the battery. A lithium-ion cell is basically a sandwich.
A sandwich.
Yeah, you have a cathode on one side, an anode on the other, and a liquid electrolyte in the middle. And separating the two sides is this super thin, porous material called a separator.
And that little separator is the only thing keeping all those volatile chemicals apart.
That's it. Now, if that separator is breached, maybe from a defect or because you dropped your phone or got crushed in a seat mechanism, you get a short circuit. And this isn't just a tiny spark. It's a full-blown exothermic chemical reaction.
Meaning it generates its own heat.
Intense heat. We're talking about temperatures spiking to over 600 degrees Celsius in just a matter of seconds. And here's the real kicker. As the chemicals break down, they release their own oxygen.
Wait. The battery makes its own oxygen.
It does. Which is why you can't just smother it. You can throw a blanket on it all you want, but the fire is being fed from the inside.
That is a firefighter's nightmare.
Yeah.
So what does this look like in the cabin? If I'm sitting there and my neighbor's phone starts to go, what am I seeing? Or hearing?
The sources are very descriptive here. Often you'll hear it before you see anything. The guides mention a hissing, crackling, or even a popping sound.
Hissing makes sense. That's gas escaping.
Yeah.
But popping.
That's pressure. The internal pressure builds up so fast that the casing ruptures. It's essentially a micro-explosion. And the sources warn that you might see debris, shards of the battery casing, molten plastic, actually being ejected from the device.
So it's not just a fire, it's a projectile hazard.
Yes. And this leads us to the biggest danger of all, sequential ignition. Most of our devices, like a laptop, don't just have one battery cell. They have a pack of multiple cells all bundled together.
Okay, so like a 6-pack, but explosive.
If you want to think of it that way, yes. When cell A goes into thermal runaway, it gets incredibly hot. If you don't manage that heat immediately, it just cooks cell B sitting right next to it. Then cell B explodes, and that heats up cell C.
It's a chain reaction.
It's a propagation effect. So you might put out the initial flame, you think you're safe, and then 10 seconds later, boom, the next cell goes. This is why the old smother and wait approach is so dangerous. You're fighting against a timeline.
Okay, so we've identified the beast. It's hissing, it's popping, it's threatening this chain reaction. What's the protocol? IATA outlines a workflow. Identify, douse, monitor.
Right, but it all operates under a principle they call simultaneous action.
Because in a crisis, you don't have time to take turns.
Precisely. In a multi-crew environment, you can't do just one thing at a time. You have one flight attendant fighting the fire, another is on the interphone to the cockpit, and a third is moving passengers away. It all has to happen at once.
Let's talk about the fighting part. The sources are very specific about the first physical step, and it has nothing to do with a fire extinguisher.
Remove to power.
It sounds so simple, I bet it's forgotten in the panic.
All the time. But if that phone is plugged into a charging cable or an in-seat power port, you're actively pumping electrical energy into a system that's already overloading. You have to sever that connection. Yank the cord.
Okay, power is out, the device is smoking, maybe there are flames licking up the back of the seat. Now we get to the part I found most surprising, the whole halon versus water debate.
This is a massive aha moment for a lot of people in the industry. For years, there was this idea that you shouldn't use halon on batteries. But the guidance from Airbus and IATA is crystal clear. If there are flames, you use halon first.
And halon is that gas in the standard red aircraft fire extinguisher. Why is it the first choice here?
Halon is chemically fascinating. It doesn't just smother a fire like foam would. It actually interrupts the combustion chain at a molecular level. It scavenges the free radicals that keep the fire going.
So it stops the fire chemically.
It knocks down the flames almost instantly. It buys you visibility and it buys you access to the device.
But the sources also mention some crews are, well, afraid to use it. The NTSB flagged this as a real concern.
They have. There's a lingering fear that halon is toxic or that it will suck all the oxygen out of the cabin. And look, while it isn't fresh mountain air, the expert consensus is clear. The risk of an out-of-control fire in a pressurized tube at 30,000 feet is infinitely higher than the risk of halon exposure.
So put on the PBE, the smoke hood, and pull the trigger.
Exactly, knock
Right.
down that flame. But, and this is the absolute critical part, halon does not stop the thermal runaway.
Because it doesn't cool anything down.
Not at all. The battery cells are still sitting there at 600 degrees. If you walk away after just using halon, the next cell is going to ignite, and those flames will come roaring right back.
This is where the strategy shifts. It's the 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
Halon for the flame.
And water for the heat. Yes. Once the flame is down, you must switch to a non-flammable liquid, usually water, to cool the device. You are trying to suck that heat out of the pack to stop the next domino from falling.
The source had a great visual detail for this. It said, you know it's working when the liquid turns to steam.
That's just basic physics, right? Phase change. Turning water into steam requires a massive amount of energy, and that energy is being pulled directly out of the hot battery. If you don't see steam or hear that sizzle, you aren't removing the heat fast enough.
And does it have to be water? What if the beverage cart is, halfway down the aisle?
You grab whatever is closest. Soda, juice, cold coffee, anything non-flammable will do. You just need thermal transfer. You need to drown that heat.
Okay, so the protocol is clear.
Yeah.
Halon, then water. But I feel like the section on what not to do is almost more important, because there are some really dangerous myths out there.
You must be talking about the ice myth.
Exactly. I see people online saying, oh, just throw it in the ice bucket. It seems logical, right? Ice
Yeah.
is cold. Cold is good.
And the source material is so explicit, do not use ice. Ever.
Walk us through the science on that. Why is ice so bad?
Two big reasons. First, ice is solid. It doesn't conform to the shape of the device, so you get all these air gaps. And air is an insulator. Second, even where it does touch, ice creates this hard, frozen shell around the device.
So you're freezing the outside, but the core is still having a meltdown.
It's worse than that. You're trapping the heat inside. By preventing the heat from escaping, you are actually forcing it into the adjacent cells. You're accelerating the sequential ignition. You're basically building a tiny igloo around a bomb.
That is a powerful image. You want the heat to escape, not stay in.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
want liquid water that can flow into all the cracks and carry that heat away.
Okay, so no ice. That's a huge one. What's the other big don't?
Do not move it.
But that goes against every single human instinct. If something is on fire near me, I want to pick it up and throw it.
And that is exactly how people get severely injured. The rule is, never attempt to pick up or move a device that is flaring, smoking, or making noise.
Because it's just too unstable.
It's a grenade with a faulty pin. It can burst without any warning. If you're holding it when it does, you risk severe burns, shrapnel, or inhaling that toxic chemical spray directly.
And practically speaking, if you try to run to the galley with a burning laptop, you might drop it.
And now you've spread the fire to the carpet or you've kicked it under a seat where no one can reach it? No. You fight it where it lies. You clear the passengers. You create a buffer zone, but you handle it right there.
Okay, so we've used the halon. We doused it with water. It stopped hissing. The steam is gone. Can I move it now?
Not yet. The protocol specifies a cooling off period, approximately 10 to 15 minutes after the fire appears to be out.
15 minutes. That feels like an eternity in that situation.
It does, but you have to account for what's called hysteresis, the lag in temperature change. The outside casing might feel cool, but the core could still be at a critical temperature. If you move it too soon, you might jostle a damaged cell and restart the whole process.
Patience is a safety tool. Okay, 15 minutes are up. Now we're in the containment phase. This is where the bucket comes in.
Right. You need a suitable empty container, a coffee pot from the galley, a metal waste bin, maybe a champagne bucket from first class. You put the device inside, but you don't just drop it in there.
Let me guess. More water.
Complete submersion. The device has to be fully underwater inside that container. This ensures that even if another cell decides to go off an hour later, all that energy is immediately absorbed by the water.
And then you stow that bucket somewhere, secure like a lavatory floor or a galley compartment, and you watch it like a hawk for the rest of the flight.
You monitor it all the way to the gate. You never assume a lithium fire is out until that device is physically off the aircraft.
I want to pivot to a specific scenario that was in the Airbus source that I found really unsettling. They call it the premium seat trap.
Ah, yes. This is a growing problem, particularly in business and first class.
We're talking about those fancy lie-flat pods with all the motors.
The issue is, as seats get more complex, they have more moving parts. You've got motors, actuators, scissor mechanisms, and they have gaps.
Gaps just big enough for a slim phone to slide into.
Exactly. So picture it. A passenger is sleeping. Their phone slides down the side of the cushion into the mechanism. They wake up. They can't find their phone. What's the first thing they do?
They move the seat to look for it. They hit that upright button.
And crunch. That powerful motor engages, the mechanism closes, and the phone is crushed.
And as we've already established, crushing a lithium battery is the fastest way to start a fire.
It's instant thermal runaway. You are mechanically breaching the separator and shorting out the entire pack all at once.
So what's the protocol there? If I drop my phone in one of those fancy seats, what should I do?
The absolute golden rule is do not move the seat.
Hands off the buttons.
Completely. If a device is lost, the crew must be told immediately. And the very first thing the crew will do is make sure that passenger does not touch those controls. The guides even suggest isolating power to the entire seat, pulling the circuit breaker before attempting a retrieval.
And if they can't get it out easily?
They leave it. They move the passenger to a different seat for the rest of the flight. You do not risk crushing a potential bomb just to retrieve a phone.
It's amazing how a luxury feature can become a major safety hazard so quickly.
It really connects back to the bigger picture, doesn't it? We've just introduced these potential incendiary devices into every single nook and cranny of the aircraft.
Let's talk about the human element for a second. We've got the fire, we've got the seat. But what about communication? We mentioned that communicator role. What are they actually telling the pilots?
They need to be forensic about it. The flight deck needs the location and the source, of course. But the sources specifically highlight describing the smoke.
Why does the smoke description matter so much?
It helps the pilots diagnose the fire. If you report an acrid smell and light gray smoke, they know it's likely electrical. If you say it smells like oil and the smoke is thick and black, that suggests a Class B fire, maybe burning liquids.
Which could change their entire emergency checklist.
Absolutely. It helps them figure out the threat to the aircraft systems. Is it just a passenger's laptop, or is hydraulic fluid burning somewhere? It's crucial information.
And meanwhile, back in the cabin, you have passengers breathing this stuff in.
Passenger management is key. You have to move people away from the fumes. The source even suggests instructing them to breathe through wet cloths or towels if they have to.
That's a very practical, old-school tip.
It works. It filters out some of the particulates.
Yeah.
But really, the most important part of passenger management is prevention.
The safety briefing.
A briefing, the awareness. You'll notice now a lot of airlines explicitly say, if you lose your device in your seat, do not move the seat. Call a flight attendant.
I have heard that. I never realized it was a direct response to these battery-crushing incidents.
It's a regulation written in ash. The procedures change because the risks are constantly changing.
So we've covered a ton of ground here, from the chemistry of the separator all the way to the mechanics of a business class seat. If we had to distill this all down, what are the golden rules here?
I'd say there are 6. Rule 1, immediate action, don't hesitate. Rule 2, remove power, yank that cord. Rule 3, the 1-2 punch. Halon kills the flame, water kills the heat, and Rule 4, no ICE. It insulates, it traps the heat.
And Rule 5.
Don't move it while it's hot. Give it that 10 to 15-minute cooling window. And finally, Rule 6, submerge it. Once it's safe to handle, you drown it in a container.
And for anyone in those premium seats, if you drop it, don't move the seat.
Please, do not move the seat.
It really changes your perspective. We used to worry about the engines or the weather, but now, the real volatility,
Yeah.
it's right there in our pockets.
That's the reality of modern aviation. The dangerous goods aren't just in crates in the hold anymore. They're in the hands of every single person on board. We are literally surrounded by potential energy.
And that energy demands respect. It's not just a phone. It's a chemical system that requires very specific scientific knowledge to manage when it fails.
Exactly right. Knowledge is safety.
So here's a thought for you to mull over the next time you're settling into your seat at 30,000 feet. You tuck your phone down by your hip, maybe plug it into the charger, and you reach for that recline button.
Will you remember that you might just be sitting on a potential incendiary device?
And more importantly, if it starts to hiss, will you know not to ask for the ice bucket? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Fly safe, everyone.